At any rate, you ready for Fitzgibberish before you piss me off anymore?
I think being mean is a way to get yourself excited. It's almost like being mad. It's like hating a fella. I make up things. Maybe if he's smiling, I'll make up a thing, imaginary thing that, hey, this kid, so, he's laughing at me. Where the game gets going, I'm going to get this guy. Embarrass him, intimidate him. You see the guy trying to get up and he's wobbling a little bit. Maybe his helmet's, turned. And that's the linebacker's delight. You're not going to end up hurting me. It's going to be you. You're going to be punished. So you better get ready today.
Yes. If you bet the chances of tonight's Fitzgibberish or any one Fitzgibberish ever quoting Ronald Reagan, you could have won a bundle. Lord knows where you cashed that ticket in, but you would have won a bundle. But Reagan once said, when people say that we're in a time where there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. Well, and I think Combs can agree. Growing up on the South Side, Gipper in the 80s or 90s, if you wanted to know about football, you did not have to know where to look for a hero. Because on the South Side, you couldn't talk about football without mentioning the last American folk hero with possibly the last American folk hero name, Dick Butkus. The news of Dick's death came right before game time yesterday. Butkus was born right here in Chicago, the youngest of 8 children, but the first to be born in a hospital. He was a huge baby, weighing in at 13 pounds, 6 ounces at birth. Good Lord, Mrs. Butkus. That's a huge boy. His father, John.
That's not the only huge thing in that situation.
My God. Just tearing apart women today. But anyway, his father, John, a Lithuanian immigrant to Ellis Island who spoke broken English, was an electrician. I didn't know this. Who worked for Pullman Standard Railroad car manufacturing company. My dad was an electrician. His mother, Emma, worked 50 hours a week at a laundry. My mom did my laundry. Butkus grew up in the Roseland neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. He was a fan of the Chicago Cardinals. Let's bring back a South Side football team. And then we don't have to talk about this team anyway. And attended their games at Comiskey Park. He was ours. Unlike any sports hero in Chicago history. So it was fitting when he went right ahead of Gale Sayers, third in the draft, to the Chicago Bears. He acquired the status of hero or legend, not with constant highlights or tributes, even though there were those, not by TikToks or a girlfriend whose popularity does not match her talent sitting in a skybox. You know who. But mostly by good old-fashioned passion, hard work, and what we used to call word of mouth. As kids, we got to do something today's kids hardly ever get to do. Fill in the rest of the story with our hearts and our imaginations. If you listen closely on this clear night, you might hear one of those stories about Dick Butkus. One such story was when some poor kids made the mistake of harassing Butkus's football star girlfriend one day at Chicago Vocational High School. Butkus was in full pads for practice on the field when he noticed 4 guys giving Helen Eisenberg, who ended up being his wife, a hard time. What happened next was recounted in 1993 by our own Rick Tellender in Sports Illustrated. Without hesitation, Butkus ran off the field, chased the car onto 87th Street, not far from where you're sitting right now, Combs, dived through the open front window on the passenger side, and in full fucking uniform, thrashed each of those passengers. Then, calmly, climbed out of the car and walked back on the field to finish practice. Or the time, in Mike Tyson fashion, although Mike Tyson wasn't even fighting then, allegedly bit the leg of an opposing center in a pile. He would later say, I'm not so mean. I wouldn't even go out to hurt anybody deliberately unless it was, important, like a league game or something. And the dude was fucking cool as a cucumber. Look at this guy. Wait, I thought I had pictures of him, but I guess I don't. Anyway, he went from a crew cut to a handlebar mustache as a young man. He was our Davy Crockett or our John Henry or a superhero if you're into the whole Marvel thing, but he was real. The story's so thick when you saw the highlights, you barely believed him. For some reason, when the news came, many of us could not believe the man could die. For Christ's sake. When we talk about Dick Butkus, we're not really talking about him at all. And I think he knew that. We're talking about us and how he made us feel. My parents loved the way he made them feel about themselves. He was their very identity, their place in this world. As kids, to say there was no other person that held our attention or captured our hearts and imaginations like Butkus cannot be overstated. It was very hard back then to watch any highlights without YouTube. You just couldn't find highlights then. You had to wait for them on TV, believe it or not. But I must have watched my mother tell the story a million times about him stripping the ball from an opponent and instead of starting to run to score a touchdown, stopping to shake the ball in the guy's face. Can you imagine that happening now? Finally, years or months later, who knows? With kids, it could have been months or years. Time goes slower when you're a kid. I finally saw the highlight, and it was great, but I prefer the story. That's Fitzgibberish, my friends. Thanks for listening.